53 BC, the Roman Republic stood at the height of its power. From the Atlantic Ocean to the deserts of Syria, its legions had conquered nearly every rival that dared to stand against them. Yet beyond the river Euphrates, one empire remained unconquered: the Parthian Empire. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome and one of the three rulers of the Republic, sought the glory that had already crowned Julius Caesar and Pompey. Without a formal declaration of war, he led more than 40,000 soldiers across the Euphrates. His ambition stretched far beyond the frontier: Mesopotamia, Ctesiphon, perhaps even the complete destruction of Parthian power. But before the Roman eagle could claim the east, the legions would have to cross an unforgiving land, a land of endless plain, burning heats, and an enemy unlike any Roman had ever faced. The Roman army advanced with absolute confidence. Thousands of legionaries marched in perfect formation beneath the banners of the Republic. The endless column moved steadily eastward, carrying Rome's ambition deeper into Parthian territory. Together they formed one of the most powerful armies Rome had ever assembled. For decades, these legions had crushed kingdoms across Europe and the Mediterranean. Victory had become an expectation, defeat almost unimaginable. Every mile carried them deeper into foreign lands. Yet none of the men marching beneath the Roman eagle could know that this campaign would become one of the darkest chapters in Rome's military history. While Crassus marched deeper into Mesopotamia, King Euphrates II led the main Parthian army north toward Armenia, securing the kingdom's northern frontier. The defense of the western border was entrusted to a single commander, Surena, young, brilliant, and already one of the greatest generals of the ancient world. He commanded only a fraction of Rome's strength. Yet he understood something Crassus did not. This war would never be decided by numbers. It would be decided by speed, discipline, and deception. As the Roman legions marched east, Surena rode west. Both armies were now moving toward the same destination: Carrhae. To the east, another army was preparing to meet Rome. But this was not an army built for conquest alone. It was an army born from the lands it was sworn to defend. Across the plains of Parthia, thousands of riders moved beneath the banners of their empire. They were not riding toward distant glory. They were riding to defend their homeland. The army traveled light, fast, and without the endless columns that followed the Roman legions. But behind the riders came something just as important. Thousands of camels carried reserves of arrows, enough ammunition to keep the Parthian bowmen fighting long after other armies would have run dry. At the head of this force stood Surena, a commander trusted with the defense of the Parthian Empire. As the sun climbed higher above the plains of Carrhae, two armies prepared for battle. On one side, more than 40,000 Roman soldiers stood beneath the eagle standards. At their head stood Marcus Licinius Crassus, a powerful Roman statesman and one of the richest men in Rome. Beside him, his son, Publius Crassus, one of Rome's most promising young commanders. Crassus knew the danger before him. On the open plains, his legions were vulnerable to the speed of the Parthian cavalry, so he ordered his army into a massive defensive square, shields facing outward on every side. It was designed to protect the legions, but the formation came at a cost. It was slow, rigid, and difficult to maneuver. Across the battlefield, Surena had already prepared his trap. The Parthian army was built around speed and mobility. Horse archers circled the Roman formation, loosing arrows before disappearing beyond the reach of Roman swords. Behind them waited the cataphracts, heavily armored riders, carrying long lances and trained to break enemy lines with a single charge. And behind the cavalry came the camel trains, loaded with vast supplies of arrows, keeping the Parthian bowmen supplied throughout the battle. Then the Parthian horse archers moved forward. Waves of arrows darkened the sky, striking the Roman ranks from every direction. The legions tightened their formation, shields locked together, holding the line. But the enemy refused to engage. Every Roman advance was answered by another storm of arrows. Minutes passed, fatigue began to spread. Confidence turned to frustration, and then Surena gave the signal. The cataphracts lowered their lances and thundered toward the Roman line. The Parthian cavalry charged, but the Roman line did not break, not yet. Crassus watched the battlefield from behind the legionary ranks. The arrows kept falling. The Romans were holding, but they could not remain trapped forever. Then, Crassus made his decision. He called upon his son, Publius Crassus. The order was given. Advance. Publius gathered the Roman cavalry, supported by light infantry, and moved against the Parthian horse archers. For a moment, the Parthians appeared to retreat, but it was a trap. The Roman cavalry followed, further away from the protection of the legions. Then the Parthians turned. Arrows filled the sky. The Romans were surrounded. Publius tried to break through the encirclement, but every escape route was sealed. Then, the Parthian cataphracts charged. The Roman formation collapsed beneath the assault. Publius Crassus was wounded and surrounded. With no escape, he chose death rather than capture. The survivors returned to the Roman army with terrible news. Publius was dead. The Roman cavalry had been destroyed, and the battle was only beginning to turn against them. Across the battlefield, the Roman formation began to fracture. The legions were exhausted, their shields were battered, their ranks were breaking, and still the Parthian arrows kept coming. Rome's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. As night fell over Carrhae, the surviving Roman army began to withdraw into the darkness. Surena did not order his men to pursue. The battle was already won. The Parthian cavalry turned back, leaving the broken remnants of the Roman army behind them. And so, on the plains of Carrhae, one of the greatest armies of Rome had been shattered. This was the end of the Battle of Carrhae.